Hey everybody, this is Tom and this is my list of the 10 most disappointing movies of 2012. Now keep in mind, disappointing doesn't mean bad. Actually, some of these movies are really good. Some of them are actually close to greatness. But since they are so close to greatness and don't achieve that, they're simply good or were hyped to be great. That's what makes them disappointing to me. So keep in mind, if one of those favorites, if one of those movies is one of your favorites, don't be too enraged, it's my own opinion. I acknowledge some of them are really good movies. I didn't rank them 10 to 1 or 1 to 10. I ordered them alphabetically because I couldn't really figure out a certain order. So with that being said, have fun watching. I hope you agree. If you don't, leave a comment underneath. Let me know what your biggest disappointments were. If you agree, disagree, leave your comment underneath. And with that being said, let's go. This is my list of the 10 most disappointing movies of 2012. There was a good amount of buzz that this film had going for itself. The trailer looks promising and it features the adorable Rashida Jones and the reliably funny Andy Samberg. But oh, what a letdown this film was. I mean, instead of actually doing anything with the promising concept of a divorce, rom-com / dramedy, the film pretty much went for the most predictable situations and conflicts. Every time there was anything at stake, the film simply zeroed in on the lowest common denominator and gave us something that we've seen done in better ways in countless movies before. Jones and Samberg, they have a nice chemistry going for themselves, but apart from that, there was simply nothing really memorable about Celeste and Jesse Forever.
Hold you and caress you. I think I could be that guy.
No.
Good.
Oh, I can hear the fanboys crying out already. Let's get it straight. Is The Dark Knight Rises an entertaining movie? Definitely yes. But is it a worthy sequel to The Dark Knight? Probably not. There were just too many shortcomings in terms of storytelling and characters. In fact, this might just be the sloppiest film Christopher Nolan has ever done. I mean, it still makes for a fun time at the movies, but compared to his other perfectly composed gems, Memento, The Dark Knight, Inception, Prestige, maybe even Insomnia, The Dark Knight Rises simply feels bumpy. It's overstuffed and underdeveloped on a script basis, and it adds filler and opens logic holes left and right. I mean, who the hell would send the entire police force of Gotham into the sewers? The entire police force! Not a single policeman is left out. Silly.
What does that mean?
The Hobbit should have been amazing. I mean, it boasts pretty much the same visual style and the same crew as the Lord of the Rings movies. But the fact that it was decided to separate a rather short children's book into 3 movies seriously backfires, and it just feels like a blatant cash grab. The result is just a movie that takes forever to get going and is at times just plain boring. Entire sequences could have been cut from the film and it would have been perfectly fine. Instead we have unnecessary junk like the drawn out part with the elves and a bunch of dwarves that feel like soulless cutouts instead of characters. Not even the exciting last 30 minutes could redeem The Hobbit for me. Peter Jackson, if you hear that, please step up your game for the next one. Let me get one thing straight. I adore this film for its bravery to do whatever the hell it wants. This is a movie against any common narrative, while strangely enough still making sense on some weird mind level. I mean, how often do you see an arthouse flick that is thought-provoking, laughably silly and batshit crazy at the same time? But there's only so much of that kind of stuff one can take before it becomes narcissistic pretentiousness. You can condemn me as someone who might not be open enough for the ideas this film tries to communicate. And maybe I simply missed the point entirely, but in the end, Holy Motors was ruined for me as it felt like an experiment that simply went nowhere. One word. Overhype. One thing The Hunger Games had going for itself was timing. The film was released pretty much at the height of the craze for the books, and money-wise it shattered even the most daring expectations. But as a film itself, The Hunger Games never really exceeds mediocrity. It's an adaptation that's true to the source material, and Jennifer Lawrence gives a decent performance in the main role. but the lack of suspense and the terribly jerky camera movements just kept this film from really taking off. I did read the book, and what I most missed on screen was the emotion that was communicated so well in the novel. I'm pretty sure the next installments will again break box office records, but with a quality like this, it remains questionable whether they deserve it or not. The Master had a lot riding on it for me. There Will Be Blood is my favorite movie of the past decade, so I was extremely excited to see Paul Thomas Anderson's follow-up. And ultimately, it was a good movie. Good, not great. I mean, there are some really fine performances by Joaquin Phoenix and Philip Seymour Hoffman in the film. The cinematography is unbelievably beautiful, and the score by Johnny Greenwood perfectly fitting, just as it was in There Will Be Blood. But the glaring problem here is the lack of a coherent narrative. There are a ton of memorable scenes in the film, but they simply don't add up to a complete movie-going experience. I'm sure with several rewatches I will find more things to admire in The Master, but for now it just left me dissatisfied.
He's been writing all night.
This movie simply enraged me. There's no other way to put it. Take This Waltz is a wannabe indie drama about an annoyingly childish and extremely needy woman who's between two men, her husband, and a guy across the street she has a crush on. Why should I even care? Considering the immense amount of talent both in front of the camera with Michelle Williams and behind the camera with Sarah Polley, this film is annoying and a bore at the same time. The characters don't feel real and their emotions couldn't be more phony. Besides some creative camera work, there was really nothing in this film for me to like, and the fact that the people behind it have proven with previous outings that they can deliver makes this one of the biggest disappointments of 2012 for me. Have you seen Martyrs, the infamous 2008 French horror movie directed by Pascal Laugier? This film is truly astonishing and remarkable thanks to some very original twists in the narrative. The Tall Man is the US debut of Pascal Laugier, this very same director. And man, is this movie a letdown. I mean, first of all, he tries to mimic the cleverness of Martyrs by adding a twist that ultimately totally backfires in terms of the narrative and just leaves the audience frustrated and angry. If you add to that this really crappy main performance by Jessica Biel, you just get a less than satisfying movie experience.
So you believe it too?
Now I'm pretty sure people will hate me for this choice, but for me, Ted was, just like The Hunger Games, a classical case of overhype. It was occasionally funny, but its constant mix of pop references, poop jokes and raunchy humor just felt like an overlong episode of Seth MacFarlane's own Family Guy. Now, don't get me wrong, Family Guy is funny, I like it. But an episode of Family Guy is with only 20 minutes just the right amount of time for this kind of entertainment. Ted's 100 minutes, on the other hand, start feeling really long and tiring. If you're a Family Guy fan, please check it out if you haven't done so yet. You might even love it, but I personally found myself looking at my watch way too many times during the film.
Hi Thomas, how are you?
Can I be honest with you?
Let me say first, Zero Dark 30 is a good movie. It's tense, well researched, and keeps the viewer engaged. So why is it on my disappointed list, you're asking? My problem was the lack of an emotional center. All the characters are simply utilitarian tools to drive the plot forward, but there's not a single of them that you will be able to identify with. I know that Jessica Chastain is supposed to fill this role, but we don't find out anything about her besides the fact that she is chasing Osama bin Laden. Her character is devoid of any real conflict, which in the end makes her uninteresting and actually kinda boring. As a result, Zero Dark 30 left me feeling empty and somewhat detached in the end. The source material would have made for an amazing documentary or miniseries, but as it stands now, I feel Zero Dark 30 is overhyped and, considering all the awards buzz, kind of underwhelming.
We are failing.